Sometimes people ask me, what does healing from sexual abuse boil down to? If you had to boil that down to one word, easy for me. Empowerment. Living well is the greatest revenge.
That's a good quote. Yeah.
You thought you destroyed me. You thought you destroyed my inner calling and my ability to feel pleasure or have a wonderful sex life. You didn't do it. Your body is your friend. Your body is you. Your body is not responsible for what happened to you. Healing is possible no matter what happened to you. And if you can't find someone who believes you or can help you, keep looking and don't give up. And don't give up on yourself.
Hi, everyone. Today is a beautiful day because I'm here with Wendy Maltz. Wendy is an internationally recognized sex and relationship therapist, and she's the author of The Sexual Healing Journey, a guide for survivors of sexual abuse. Has there been a time that you had an inner calling deep inside you? And what happened when you followed it?
I think my name, Wendy, affected me when I was little. It wasn't a real popular name, but it was related to the story of Peter Pan. She was a mother type who took care of all the lost boys. Mm-hmm. And I just thought she was really cool. And I had little brothers and sisters, and I liked taking care of them. So I think I always had kind of a nurturing aspect to my nature and healer kind of aspect. I didn't recognize it as such, but when I look back, like, what's my inner calling? I think it was to be a social worker, therapist. And I also have an inner calling as a dancer, being alive and feeling the energies of the world and enjoying nature and connecting to people has been just part of who I am. And laughing a lot. I like
Very important.
I think that's kept me sane and happy in general, even in hard times.
Yes, and it has been very hard times lately. What do you think of everything going on in the world right now?
I think I told you when you first invited me here, I debated whether I even would do it because I was in such a funk about what's happening in the United States and around the world to women's rights and survivors, how they've been treated and are continuing to be treated so poorly. And the government, just every day, it's like one thing after another, finding out how much of a cover-up, how deep it went, how many people were involved. And I know this is impacting survivors to listen to the news. And I'm a survivor myself. And it was impacting me. So it was, my inner calling and positivity. And it's like, I don't know if I can get in touch with that right now. Thank you. But then I started feeling like, well, there are some good signs. And I have the benefit of being able to look back like the 40, 50 years in a career of social work and what things were like when I was in college and starting out as a therapist. And I can reflect then and see that we've made a lot of progress, and progress is continuing to be made. Just that image of all the Epstein survivors on the steps of the Supreme Court or the Capitol steps, sharing their stories out in the open, saying we want justice, we deserve justice, and coming into their power and strength, that would have been just so unheard of. The subject of sexual abuse was just so tapped down. There was so much shame around it. There was so much ignorance around it. As a survivor, I didn't even identify the date rape I had as a rape, because I had been drinking and, I just thought, I really screwed that evening up or whatever. And then I went, I did say no. And, that wasn't honored. It was like, hey, wait a minute, I was raped. So there was a lot of ignorance and shame and silence. And it's great to see that kind of change. When I wrote my book, The Sexual Healing Journey, I wanted to include the names of celebrities or known people who had stepped out and been able to say they were abused. That was such a difficult thing to do for me as a professional doing speaking and conferences to say, you know, I'm a survivor. It was like the words were choked in my voice, but I could hardly find celebrities, other names of people. Marilyn Vanderburg, the Miss America, was a role model, actually, because she was speaking out about her experiences. But there were very few males. And so we can look and we can go, oh, there are television shows about sexual abuse. Oh, there have been movies. And there are some movies I've seen lately that where there were older women who were finally dealing with the repercussions of sexual abuse. I don't know if you saw Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin's movie. I think it's called something like Moving On or Moving Forward. And it was all about dealing with the repercussions that had bugged her whole life and finally getting strength. And then another was called Naiad that featured Annette Bening as a swimmer. And this was based on a true story, who was able to finally accomplish her goal of swimming from Cuba to Florida.
To Florida. Oh, wow.
Exactly. Yeah. Never done before. And that's a powerful movie because both of those wove in the stories of sexual abuse. And here are these women reclaiming it, and older women sort of showing, hey, even though it might have only taken minutes, these can be lasting repercussions if people haven't done the healing work or otherwise had life experiences where they were able to overcome them.
It can be so overwhelming with sexual abuse to heal. Where does one even begin?
Oh, well, the beginning is that coming out of shame and secrecy and silence and realizing that you're not alone. You weren't to blame for what happened to you. Sexual abuse is it's an epidemic in our culture and other cultures around the world, unfortunately, and it's been going on for eons. It's part of our ape nature, actually.
Or ape nature, is it really? I did not know that.
Yeah, I studied smiling for a while, and I was looking back at the evolution, and I came across Frans de Waal's work on chimpanzees, and it talked about the male chimps raping the young females, and then you know how they resolved it? All the females, apes, would get together and go and find the young females, the older females would come, and they bonded together in power, just like those survivors on the Capitol steps, could come out and talk about abuse in order to help protect younger females. I mean, it happens to males too, a lot actually, and that's even harder for our culture to talk about. But it was strange hearing about how it would happen to bands of males would kidnap females, and then other females would save them and rescue them.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It's sort of like, oh, holy cow, this has been going on forever, but now we know the way to deal with it, and it's coming out of that feeling that you're all alone or that it was your fault. It's like, this is a real problem among humans and cultures. And I think, I was director of the Berkeley Women's Center back in the 90s, and so I have a whole feminist streak in my background of fighting for women's rights. And women's rights are people's rights and children's rights, too. It has been hard seeing the way that this present administration and before, it swept away so many of the rights that me and my friends and colleagues, we fought hard for rights to make decisions about our own bodies. And that's at the basis. that realizing you're not alone, this is part of a sociological issues that have gone on in the culture, and they can be overcome. And healing is another very important message. What we have now, which we didn't have 40 years ago, was a ton of wonderful resources and people like yourself, Victoria, therapists who have been trained in dealing with trauma and sexual abuse backgrounds, helping people work through the issues. And there are techniques, EMDR, yoga is very helpful, Tai Chi, dance, swimming, whatever brings you into your body and helps you breathe.
And helps you breathe.
Breathe and be present.
The breathing is important.
Breathing is very important because one of the first things we do with trauma is cut off that air supply, and then the cortisol spikes and everything. So when you're breathing, you're slowing your system down. And with healing the sexual repercussions from abuse, that does involve slowing down sexual relating and learning new skills where you reinforce the fact that you're in charge of your own body, that you can control what happens, and that you can create experiences where you are safe and feel safe and can experience pleasure.
I don't know. For me, as a survivor, slowing down, then I'm with my body more. And that terrifies me.
Your body is your friend. Your body is you. Your body is not responsible for what happened to you. I mean, I'm coming on a little harsh.
Yeah, no.
I retired 10 years ago, and so all my therapy skills are out the window. I just say to people, stop doing that.
Someone I'm working with on breath work says the same thing. Body good, good body. Breathing good.
Our bodies were victims, Our sexual parts were victims in the abuse. I mean, if we disown them or condemn them or ignore them, we're perpetuating the harm that was done on us. Because, see, I see abuse as a way in our culture now to deny certain vulnerable parties, women, children, voice. And also, there's a lot of racism and abuse to disempower vulnerable groups and populations. If we cut off from our body or start condemning and hating our bodies, hey, we're giving them a helping hand, right?
That's true, yeah.
In removing our voice and disempowering ourselves. Sometimes people ask me, what does healing from sexual abuse boil down to? If you had to boil that down to one word, easy for me, empowerment.
Empowerment.
Because it's the robbing people of their personal power. You talk about inner calling. Yeah, well, that gets robbed.
Exactly.
In terms
your voice
of being
gets robbed.
Your voice gets robbed. Your inner sense of who you are and what you want to do during your one precious life, that gets harmed and can get disabled.
Get disconnected. Yeah.
Yvonne Dolan was a colleague, friend of mine, and she wrote a book, Resolving Sexual Abuse, and several others. And I'll never forget, she said, living well is the greatest revenge.
That's a good quote. Yeah, good.
It's like, yeah, you didn't get me. You thought you destroyed me. You thought you destroyed my inner calling and my ability to feel pleasure or have a wonderful sex life or to trust myself or to speak up for what I want and need. You didn't do it. Living well. It's like, yeah, I'm going to enjoy that dessert. I'm going to dance on the beach.
What about the guilt? What about the guilt, Wendy? The guilt some of us feel about what happened and that we may have inadvertently played a role.
It doesn't belong to you. Even if you did actions like me, drinking too much or whatever, or picking the wrong person to go out with, or even if you were tricked And as a child, let's say you felt you were needy because you weren't getting the nurturance you needed, and the perpetrator was providing some kind of attention and affection and things you needed. That's still not your fault for the abuse. You didn't ask to be exploited in ways that would harm you the rest of your life.
What about consent back when none of us knew really the words for consent, before Me Too and our culture became more aware and conscious of matters of consent?
Even if it's asked now, it doesn't matter. It's an ongoing process. Consent, it's not a one-time thing. It's not like one gate that opens. Okay, I'll have sex with you. No, it's ongoing. It has to do with respect, and a partner should be tuning in and respecting and honoring. And if you weren't able to give consent because you were too young or you were...
When I was growing up as a teenager, no one ever talked about consent.
Why there are laws, like at 18 years old, you know, for consenting to sexual interaction, 16, 18. Because it's not until we're older that we can give informed consent, fully informed of what this means to have sex, what the potential negative repercussions are to a sexual interaction, to have some sense of one's own body and one's own rights. It's about self-compassion. It is about being able to hug that younger self, that less informed, ignorant self who you were, even if you're older and tricked by someone else, to embrace her and hug her and say, it was not your fault. You did not understand, or you did not fully understand what was going on or what this meant. And let's move forward from here.
Embracing that younger self.
Yes, and loving her or him. With maturity comes wisdom and comes forgiveness and things like that. But here's the thing. In our culture, shame and guilt have been poured onto the victims. They still are.
There's so much shame,
Yeah, culturally, it's like, think of all the survivors like in the Me Too movement who spoke up and were told they were lying or making it up. It was a really harsh time in the late 80s and the 90s when there was actually a movement called the false memory syndrome.
I've heard of false memories.
False memory. Yeah, and there were authorities on it and everything. And Newsweek even had a spread about false memories with a picture of the brain and what part of the brain they occurred in. And therapists like myself were attacked for implanting false memories because people were starting to speak out about abuse and how prevalent it is and how damaging it is. The culture, which had been supporting sexual abuse, the part of the culture fought back with blaming the victim and attacking the victim for you're doing this just for attention. I'll tell you, I never met a survivor who talked about their early abuse and did that for attention. If anything, it's like they really did not want this as part of their life and their memories and their experience. And so it twisted everything. And I always think shame is like a hot potato. Somehow in my mind, I picture it with aluminum foil over it because that's how I made baked potatoes. You know, it's a good image, you know. And what happens is our culture and the perpetrator throw it at the victim at the time of the abuse, and the victim stuck with it. And what therapy and healing from sexual abuse is all about is throwing it back at them. This is not mine. It was never mine. It's yours. You did this. Take some responsibility.
Oh my God, that's so true. But it's so hard sometimes. Why do we cling to our hot potatoes? What have you seen? Why do we cling so hard to that hot potato?
It's the way we're encultured. I mean, we're taught, especially as females, to be accommodating and to be caring and to
blame
be
ourselves.
sensitive and take things on. And if there's an argument in the relationship, what did I say wrong?
understand.
Or how could I not have done this or that? We carry a lot of anxiety around our behavior and how we put ourselves out in the world. I wore the wrong thing. You have a right not to be abused no matter what you wear, you know?
You have a right to be beautiful. You have a right to be beautiful. Sometimes see women, they feel guilty for having been beautiful, you know?
Right. That's a bunch of, when the blaming is abuse happens to people no matter what. And it's the perpetrators and the culture who make up these ridiculous ways of trying to minimize it and throw the responsibility on the victim.
What are the different ways we can throw the hot potato back at the perpetrator, have you found? Well, so one is self-compassion, but are there other things you've advised people over there?
Joining together to change the laws. I mean, we've been doing that for the last 30, 40 years in terms of when you can file a lawsuit for damages and things like that. But there used to be restrictions, like you had to do it within a year or within months or within 3 years. Now it can be any time in the past. But the legal routes to justice or whatever are a mess. There are very few survivors actually go through with that, and they put survivors, sometimes put them through hell.
I hate to have to go through that on top of everything.
On the stand. I recently, speaking of books, I recently listened to Chanel Miller's wonderful book.
I started reading that, yeah.
Did you start reading it? It's called Know My Name. And she was the victim of a rape on the Stanford campus. And she had been drinking and had blacked out and then was taken advantage of. And she's such a wonderful writer. I actually wrote her a letter, a fan letter. I've never done that before. Listening to her book. I mean, it was hardcore, incredible detail about everything she experienced in the trauma itself, in her sense of her own personhood, and in her relationship with her partner, and then with the legal system, with the institutions, Stanford, and with the lawyers and everything. I won't give it away, but it took a long time.
Yeah.
And justice was wonky, too. But she did such a beautiful job. The writing, I felt it was so humane and had a wonderful caring quality to it, and was so inspirational for survivors, and helpful to see how you find that inner strength,
that voice,
or your inner. That's a story of finding your inner calling. How she had a lot of strength she didn't know of, and she was able to, get that going.
I have to read it, because do you know where she found the source of that strength? How is she able to find all that strength to do all of that?
Let's put it this way. She recognizes that it kind of takes a village to heal. She could see that there was strength she got from her family, helpers who showed up, even in the hospital when her body was bruised and she was being taken care of and had to do all the stuff for the rape kit, which, talk about intimate trauma, what feels like an intimate violation or can feel. But the people who attended to her were so sensitive. The women were so careful and sensitive with her and nurturing with her that they kind of helped her along in that process. And that was true with certain people that, came into her life.
That's quite beautiful. Yeah. Because we're used to saying, oh, I'm going to my therapist today. But
right.
Have we really considered that it takes a village to heal?
I don't want to give the story away, but there were some males that showed up at just the right time, and people who she didn't meet till after everything was kind of all over, who had testified on her behalf. And then you had people in the institutions who had woken up and started doing things different. And I think the money that had come together from the school to put on a training like I did on how to heal the sexual effects of abuse. This was for psychologists and for the rape crisis teams and things. I think it came from the new resources that they decided to put in place at Stanford because of her case.
I see.
And her advocacy for this never to happen again or not to happen again on campus. And if, God forbid, if it happens, that people be treated differently than she was. So that's what I said. I came out of it with this feeling of progress because 20, 30 years ago, I mean, it happened. Those things were going on, but there weren't places to get help. There weren't voices. There weren't people who could support you. And the whole issue of being believed was huge. That False Memory Syndrome Foundation, I was pregnant with my daughter at the time. This was in 1981. They came to my office as a therapist with signs. That, said that I was implanting false memories in my clients. Can you imagine someone shows up at your office? They were doing this around the country, this organization of what was essentially pedophiles.
Oh my God, it's awful.
Yeah, and people lost their licenses, and they put
lost their licenses over that.
Oh yeah, they put a complaint on my licensing board in Oregon saying that my books, my first book was Incest and Sexuality. And they said, so even writing about it, Victoria, was considered not okay, that you were creating false memories of abuse. Can you?
Not even writing about it was okay because writing it would create false memories. That's insane.
I know. So we look back at that now and go, come on, I mean, this wasn't a court of law when you're in a therapy room. It was somebody who's crying about what their uncle did to them, or their father.
How do you keep your good humor and laughing and, like you were saying, dancing and all of it with all that you've seen and worked over the years?
Yeah, I worked for like 40 years with survivors. Well, some of it's because the people are marvelous that I work with. And we worked together, and it was an enlivening process. But also, I think because being part of a movement to change things is helpful, and doing that in terms of conferences and trainings and books and articles and podcasts and things, helping people, getting the word out. You're not to blame. There are resources. Healing is possible no matter what happened to you. And if you can't find someone who believes you or can help you, keep looking and don't give up. And don't give up on yourself. And, getting those messages out is helpful. And then I just, I have a personal life. I have a wonderful relationship with my husband, Larry. We've been together 50 years. He was with the Berkeley Men's Center when I was with the Berkeley Women's Center.
Oh, is that how you guys met?
Yeah. And so, it's been very helpful having a partner who's so supportive and so loving and, the whole way, and so intelligent. That really helps and supportive.
Question, what's the secret to being married for 50 years? Do you have any advice?
Probably laughter.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's like healing from sexual abuse. It is possible. This is a hard thing to do. You're not alone. There's a high divorce rate. Oh, God.
So in your book, you talk about reclaiming sexuality. Now, what would you say are the steps to reclaiming one's sexuality?
Well, I could say you could write books about it, but I did. The Sexual Healing Journey book is the main book. It gives a template, and I encourage people to create their own healing experience. So here's some principles and strategies and areas that need to be addressed and where change can happen to help healing occur. And it has to do initially with changing your attitudes. Well, recognizing what happened to you and that it had repercussions and what those were, and that you weren't to blame. So dealing with that, making the connection between the feelings you're having now and what happened to you. But then there's dealing with changing your attitudes about sex, about yourself as a sexual person, your self-concept, and then dealing with automatic reactions to touch that come up, and stopping behaviors that were developed in reaction to abuse, like compulsive sexual practices or hurtful behaviors, not taking care of yourself and doing high-risk sexual behaviors, things like that. And being able to understand the different triggers that you personally developed because of sex, whether it's certain parts of your body you don't like touched, or certain types of touch, or certain sexual activities. And I mean, the book gives tons of information for how to address each of these and exercises and how to move forward to make progress in these areas. There's a whole series of relearning touch exercises that you can do on your own or with a partner. And they have to do with learning how to breathe, be present, communicate, and to make changes and convey positive feelings like caring through touch to yourself, your own body, as well as to your partner, addressing certain sexual functioning issues. There's a whole lot of areas. It's not just one thing. It's attitude, your thinking as well as your actions.
Thank you so much for writing it, because you really break down something that feels so overwhelming and something that can't be healed into something tangible that can.
It's amazing. And you know what?
It is. It really is.
People discover these things on their own. I would give a presentation at a survivor conference, and I never forget this one woman who came up to me and she said, well, you know, I'm listening to all the things you're talking about, and I realize that I did this. And my partner and I did our own version of this. This was a woman who had a female partner, and she said, we would go to bed together fully clothed. Or I would go to bed fully clothed. And when I felt safe, we would do some touch, just general touch, she said. And slowly over time, I took off one garment after another until I got down in a T-shirt and my underwear. And then, you know, we would be affectionate with each other. And then finally, she said, but I always had socks on.
She kept her socks on?
She kept her socks on. She said, this is what I mean. How can you not? You know, people are amazing in their creativity to heal. Yeah. And so she said, for some strange reason, it was the socks that were the last to go. And I said, wow, good for you. You know, it was that slowing down, tuning in, having a partner who was educated or, you know, was sensitive and not rushing things and recognized what they were dealing with and cooperative and not pushing things. And that trust was rebuilt, you know, of being able to be physically intimate with another person and through a very gradual process. You know, it's like, you got the basics, man. You don't need the book. You figured this out and it worked for you. And similarly, I was on a radio show once, and people were talking about sexual problems from sexual abuse. And a man called in and he said, well, I was sexually abused outdoors, at a park somewhere. And he said, and I don't have any sexual problems, or I don't have any repercussions from it. And I said, that's great. Can you tell us more about your story? He said, well, I was found, it was interrupted. They caught the guy. It was my parents and the officer, you know, everyone explained that the perpetrator was sick and had a problem. And my parents would talk with me about it, how I was feeling. And they told me that wasn't real sex, or it wasn't what sex is, or something, something. They made those distinguish. That was and it was all this guy's fault. There was justice and everything. And so he never took it on like there's something bad or wrong with me, or the shame. He didn't get a chance to have that hot potato.
It's very important not to hold on to that hot potato. Yeah.
And so that was the village came together to him, and they stopped the abuse and protected him and got justice and explained. And it wasn't silence and secrecy and shame, had no ability to grow in that. We can do that afterwards, even if we didn't get it early on at the time of the experience itself. We can give that to ourselves and get that from therapeutic interaction. And group therapy, too, can be really helpful.
The shame really fascinates me because it can be so difficult to let go of shame sometimes. Did you find that in your practice, that it was very challenging to let go of the shame? Or did you find that people were pretty readily able to give up the hot potato?
No, I found it in my own life very difficult to give up shame.
It's very
I think it's sticky.
It's a sticky hot potato wrapped in foil.
I should have said it was a sticky hot potato, and it's not. You can't throw it back that easily.
Because there's something about shame. It feels good to feel shame, because if I feel good, then that means that person is bad or that something bad happened. So it feels strangely congruent to feel the shame.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I don't feel good when I hold on to shame, but if there is that sense of not getting justice or recognition for how bad it was, I can understand that.
I've worked with people who are very suicidal, so then it feels like the shame, then it ends up turning into, a really dark place. Like it would be good for me to die, because of this. I've done something so wrong. It feels right for me to die.
Something so wrong was done to you and they had no right to do that. It's a different.
It's really
needs to be that thinking needs to be turned
shifted
around, and it's not your shame to begin with. It wasn't you. It's this crazy world we live in and society that perpetuates sexual abuse. In our entertainment, there are rights that people have, and our legal system is perpetuated, but it's not the person's fault. Yeah, shame is one of the hardest things.
So hard.
Sometimes people feel they can have more control if they hold on to the shame of what happened. It's like, if no one else is staying, they're responsible and stepping up to the plate to deal with the bad of what happens, then there's like a vacuum. And so sometimes it can feel like that has to be filled, because how can we live in a right world if we can't undo the bad things? And so the thinking can be, I will take on the bad thing as my fault so that I can undo it. Or if I'm responsible for it, then maybe I know how to change it so it won't happen. I guess for some people that might be if I exit myself, but that's crazy thinking.
Or shame for enjoying it, enjoying the abuse.
Yeah, bodies feel pleasure. We have sensitive body parts that are going to respond, and if it was enjoyed in the moment, that doesn't mean you enjoyed the whole thing. And then when you were informed about how, much you were exploited or tricked, it might be a more emotional kind of blow of the betrayal. But you were abused nonetheless, whether you enjoyed it. And in bodies orgasm, our bodies will orgasm in abuse as a way to deal with stress. Or some survivors told me as a way to stop the abuse. It was finally over once they climaxed. And it's an insidious nature of abuse. So there again, you can't attack yourself for your own responses, emotionally or physically, that happened during the abuse when you were less aware of the whole picture
Yeah.
and what exactly was being done to you. That's a case with some of these Epstein survivors. You know, some of them went in wanting modeling careers and thinking they didn't have money, and they were getting money,
totally
and they were
exploited and taken advantage of. Yeah.
advantage of it. Yeah, and some may have enjoyed the, quote unquote, the attention, the money, all the stuff that came with it. But when they got old enough, they realized, hey, I was sex trafficked.
Yeah.
That's not okay. I wouldn't want that for my own daughter. And I think Virginia Giuffre killed herself, one of the outspoken survivors who really helped take down Epstein.
She did, yeah.
I mean, she was involved for a long time, but it wasn't until she had children where she started going, I would not want this for my children. Why?
Did you
It's
read
a
her
robbery of a life.
Did you read her book recently? I think she
No,
has
I
a
didn't.
book. Yeah.
Have to. Did
I
you
haven't
look
read
at that?
it. No.
Haven't.
I would like to.
I have to. I mean, I'm fascinated by what's going on because I really want the bad guys to get taken down.
I know.
And there are people, talk about the helpers, the wonderful people, the village. I just have so much respect for these people who are like Aaron Parnas and Ellie Leonard, and, that are dedicating their time to researching those Epstein files in a way the government should have done
so many
in a real investigation, right?
Yeah.
And they're finding all these links and connections and pulling out material that can be used legally to take people down. What a mess. It is so disheartening how deep this can run and be hidden for so long. It's like, God, good God.
I know.
But now I know what we were dealing with and why it was taking decades to make changes, because this stuff does run so deep.
It runs so deep in our society.
In our society.
And culturally.
And we're not apes anymore. We're not cousins of apes anymore. We can go to the moon. We can make symphonies. We can,
I think we are still cousins, Wendy, aren't we?
I think we are.
I think we are DNA-wise or whatever.
Your puppy dog, your dog looks awfully nice there. I think I want the dog's life might be a better life.
Yeah. But it does go so deep. As we're talking, I'm thinking about all the messages that, we get from society about sex in the first place and about sexuality, and a lot of it being from porn, and our children's messages being from porn, and not like a healthy kind of messages about sexuality, it being natural, it being just your own expression in the world, how much vitality it can give you. We don't hear messages like that. We see these other messages. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my husband, Larry, and I, we were noticing people coming to our practices back in around 2000 when the internet started, was getting, you could download lots of porn. It was becoming so available. And it was breaking up marriages.
Oh,
and
really?
People were saying they felt addicted to it like they had to drugs. And so I started doing research, and we ended up with the Porn Trap book, The Porn Trap, Overcoming, the Essential Guide to Overcoming Problems Caused by Pornography. And it's a great book, too.
What are the problems caused by pornography?
Well, things like having difficulty being able to enjoy sex with a real partner and connect the emotional self. But there can be almost like a physiological dependency on it that happens. I mean, it jacks up endorphins, vasopressins, opiates. There are all these wonderful chemicals that our body can produce itself, and adrenaline, that can be stimulated in. It's like a cocktail of pleasure chemicals that come with sexual arousal and excitement. And they can get addicted or develop a problematic sexual behavior with going to porn in order to elevate their mood. And then the lack of porn can bring on a negative feeling. It's similar to hardcore drugs. Where
It is. Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Is it a
the
similar,
absence of it feels bad. So people
like a withdrawal?
A withdrawal. They can't go on vacation without having a device they can access porn. Now you can access porn on a phone, but that wasn't the case when I started doing the research on how it was impacting people. So again, physically, emotionally, isolation, social isolation, shame, personal shame, having your life being controlled by this product that you can't seem to move away from.
Yeah.
And then feeling you're being taken down a rabbit's hole into feeling sexually attracted and drawn towards behaviors like with younger and younger partners.
You see that rabbit
children.
hole happen.
And the industry is geared to pulling people into children.
It's geared towards, it's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Or and towards aggression and violence and towards dominance over certain racial minorities too. It's
and there's something about the brain, it just can't get enough. Then it needs to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
more and more. Yeah,
sex itself, I don't want to say it's kind of boring when you think of it, but I mean, there's just there are only certain kind of combinations you can get, and it's over pretty quickly or whatever, relatively, depending on
like real life
people.
sex versus like porn sex. Yeah.
And porn is always there. It's always available. You don't have to wine and dine someone, and there's infinite variety. It's an insidious thing, but bottom line, Victoria, it's a commercial product that wants your sexuality, wants to own your sexuality.
It wants to own your sexuality.
Yeah. And that's how it stays living. It's all about somebody making money off of your sexual arousal and owning that. Own it. And it doesn't want to lose you as a customer or whatever. And it wants to pull you into. There's a cost, even if you're not paying money. There can be a cost to how it can make it hard to feel that your heart is part of just eyes and genitals. It's hard to feel your heart is connected to your sexuality and your sexual thoughts, and you're in alignment. Whereas one of the greatest, deepest pleasures of sexual intimacy, I think, this is personally, but and there are poets and writers who've written about this, and Rumi and whatever for years.
I love Rumi.
Is when everything is lined up, your head, your heart, your genitals, and sex can take us into realms and experiences that are enlivening and bonding, and bonding with a partner or bonding with the natural world, a waterfall, a storm, a wave crashing. It's like it's all inside ourselves. There's so many avenues of enjoyment that porn can make difficult. There's not a whole lot going on now about what's being lost.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
By the porn craze and involvement.
There's any place for porn between a couple and a couple sex life?
Yeah, I think there can be, but a lot depends on the nature of that. And there's always questions to ask. Is it increasing or decreasing your self-esteem? Is it bringing you closer to your partner or farther away? Is it causing negative repercussions? You have to check in, be conscious and notice, just like hopefully we do with alcohol and drugs, Is this working for me or is it working against me? And where am I going with this?
If someone is currently feeling addicted to porn, what do you advise? Just like a slow fade out or a cold turkey cut out?
The different. Sometimes they get to sort of an extreme yuck factor with it.
Yeah.
I heard these stories in my research because Larry and I did all this research for the book, and they just talk about, they sort of hit a level of disgust with themselves, it seems like, and what this had done. Oh, and some of the stories when people had gotten off porn and then approached sexuality new, and was like, they felt they were in this new world, like, this is so cool. But it's like I feel love for the first time, or or I feel alive, but it still can be hard to pull out of it.
I love hearing you talk about sexuality. Roses blooming and waterfalls, that's very beautiful. I was wondering if you could define sexuality in a positive way. What exactly is it?
Well, we're interesting in that our sexuality goes beyond reproduction, right? We enjoy being sexual, not just to procreate, but we are sexual, I think, for bonding, strengthening bonds within couples, and then that makes families stronger because the couples last longer, and then that makes communities stronger. And, we're very anxious kind of species, and it calms us. It does release all these wonderful chemicals that we can end up feeling both arousal and as well as a sedation. But I see our sexuality is all these different levels. Our bodies and our bodies' reactions, our special parts of our bodies, how we feel about ourselves as a sexual person, and how we're able to express ourselves through our sexuality. But it's a core aspect of who you are as a human being. And it's talk about power and empowerment. It's a core power of who we each are. It's a powerful force we have inside ourselves that's capable of this incredibly beautiful expression, and some people go their whole lives never hearing the beautiful notes.
Yeah.
Sexual abuse is the taking over of a person's sexuality for, other purposes like making money or exploiting or the pleasure of someone else. And I see pornography similar to that. Of course, it's, entertainment. And I like, a sexy scene in a movie as much as anybody else, when there's some positive, things going on there. If it just reinforces sexual arousal to violence or denigration or betrayal, not so much.
It strikes me that our sexuality is like very deeply associative and easily imprinted.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
It is.
Very powerful association can be made very easily and quickly. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's always constantly changing and evolving. And that's why if you go through a period where you're addicted to porn or you were sexually abused or what, you can move beyond that and you can create new experiences and new fantasies. I did a book on fantasy too,
Is it a big book on women's fantasies?
Yeah, well, it was originally called In the Garden of Desire. I did it with Susie Boss.
I love that book. That's such a good book.
Yeah, the writing, I think, is the best in that. It's now also under the title, more recently, Private Thoughts.
It's really helpful to see what kind of thoughts other people have.
Yeah. But that was also about how to create fantasies you enjoy, and there was how to overcome fantasy problems. It's like porn problems. People can have sexual fantasies they're not comfortable with. Actually, a lot of survivors, that's what led me to explore the subject. Survivors felt they had developed sexual fantasies from the abuse where they were having arousal to things that were related to the abuse, and so it was living inside them and they couldn't get out of it.
What do you advise? Do you advise coming up with a new type of fantasy for those survivors?
Well, there are different techniques for overcoming unwanted fantasies, and similar to like with the physical healing from sexual abuse, you stop and become aware of what's going on and shift focus, or, tune into your body. And there are ways of changing the fantasy a little bit, the script in the fantasy. You might have a little girl and an older man, and then the girl grows up. She's, she's not 4, she's 14, and then she's 24, and he goes from being, 60 to being 45, and then he's in his 20s, and soon you get more equality, and you move towards some of the dynamics like consent, equality, respect, trust and safety, mutuality. Those kind of conditions make for positive sexual experiences. And so they're like, I call that the CERTS, CERTS, consent, equality, respect, trust, and safety. It's on my website, on healthysex.com. You can read about healthy sexuality there and the CERTS. I wrote about it first in Incest and Sexuality. But those are like green lights. And when you get those green lights lit, then go for it and have a good time. Once those are, there, people don't end up with negative repercussions from what they've done.
Yeah. I love your website, healthysex.com, because it's just a wonderful resource to see sexuality in such a natural and positive way, and to have this kind of encouraging, hopeful kind of tone. Thank you for making it. There's a need for more resources like this.
Oh, thank you. It pulls together the things I've, did in my lifetime, in my life's work. And those pictures, I don't know if you know the artwork on it.
Yeah, I did I saw that. Yeah.
I do art for fun.
I think that's a really nice message, because the art you have on there is beautiful, but it also is a reminder sexuality is related to sensuality and just aliveness and passion and joy. Yeah. And I think that message is needed more and more. What other resources do you recommend for people looking to explore sexuality in a positive way, a healthy way? Poetry or?
Yeah, I have the poetry collections in Passionate Hearts and Intimate Kisses. Those are compilations of contemporary and older poetry that celebrate healthy sexual intimacy. I had so much fun making those. You asked, how do you stay positive? It's because I took on projects like that.
Yeah, like
during
personal
those years.
Yeah,
like I hearing stories of sexual abuse during my practice all the time. I want to explore love-based sexual intimacy and people celebrating positive sexuality, whether they were abused or not, and get that out there, because the survivors were saying, where can I find examples? And I found it in poetry. But there are a number of books. I think books on sensual massage can be a really helpful skill. And like I said, yoga or any kind of practice that helps you be in your body and that slow down and tunes you in. Yeah, I think through sensuality is a good way. I would read books on sensual massage, and I met my husband in a massage workshop in Berkeley in 1974.
Question: how do you keep sex alive when you're married for so long over time? Like, how do you keep that spark alive?
Well, I think staying physically healthy is the most important thing, and knowledgeable of how to deal with different kinds of concerns that come up, like the lessening of hormones. And so I did research on that. I have some practitioners who, like hormone creams can be your best friends, certain kinds. And males especially need to, they can get enlarged prostates and develop other problems. There are medications now with Viagra and Cialis that can help men stay sexually active if they want to for longer. We don't have a lot of good ones for females, really. But in general, they're, talking with your doctor about different options. So you have to look at the medical perspective. But in general, staying strong and flexible and having good stamina are good. And yoga, I do yoga. But I think, at this point, drive change as you get older, the itch isn't as itchy. Or you kind of, or it's...
The itch isn't as itchy. I love that.
At least I know it's different for many people, and a lot of people give sex up post-menopause or
I was going to ask you about
60
menopause.
or 70.
Yeah,
menopause doesn't have to be a killer because there are, ways. I'm 25 years past menopause, so it doesn't have to be. But things change, and sexuality changes as people get older, or it can change. One person's experience can't be given for others because, like I said, some people just they phase out of it, and then what becomes important is staying alive in a healthy way to just do things together. But I think the strongest aphrodisiac, I don't know if you remember Dr. Ruth, but there was an old sex therapist.
Yeah.
She used to say respect was the strongest aphrodisiac. And I kind of agree, when people really care about each other and love each other, they'll find ways to interact in sensual, intimate ways, whether that involves full-blown sexual intercourse or with all the bells and whistles, which, praying helps. But, it's the attitude is much more of just sharing special time. And,
What do you think of tantric sex?
I think can be a lot of positive learning. In fact, a lot of the keys on tantric sex, like breath and relaxation and tuning into the body and conscious loving, conscious exchange of breath. I think any kind of practice could be taken where the practice becomes more important than the feelings or what's going on with the partners. So I think, like getting along well with someone and really being in touch with the appreciations you have for your partner, being able to receive your partner's appreciations towards you, those kinds of quality elements, if they're present in tantric sex, it's meaningful. If it's just done like doing a certain dance together or something, it doesn't go on those levels. So I think the emotional intimacy, from that comes, and that's what I think keeps a relationship alive sexually too for many years, is adoring each other. I was telling my daughter the other day, I said, I think Larry and I are adoring each other more the older we get. And we don't take every day for granted because we have friends, I'm in my mid-70s, and it's like we have friends who are passing away suddenly. And that's been going on for a while now. But so you appreciate every day. Yeah. It's a switch, because I remember earlier times in my life was like wandering eyes or, or things like, or what am I doing with the same partner for all these years? And now it's like, I don't want anybody else. I just want you to live.
Adoring. I love that. Adoring. You were answering the inner calling of being yourself. And it's been a gift to the world and to the rest of us, Wendy.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And how can listeners find you and support your work?
Through the website, healthysex.com.
Wonderful.
There's a contact page there.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing therapy or offering, but it's nice to hear from people too.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Great talking and seeing you again.
Yes, great talking and seeing you
Victoria.
too. If you'd like to support the show, the most helpful way would be to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or YouTube or Spotify. It would just be awesome if you could also share an episode that you found helpful with a friend. That would help spread the word about INNERCALLING and helps us make the show better for you each time. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a beautiful day.